Pope County Casino update. The state has clarified who can buy cigarettes, at what age. Also, the Clinton Foundation continues to give to Arkansas charities and to themselves. We'll also talk to Family Council's David Cox about the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery, and state government keeps getting more and more of your revenue. The revenue keeps increasing. And is it okay for your tax dollars to go to pay for bureaucracies and then have those bureaucracies promote higher taxes? Also, there's a Libertarian running for House District 22. We'll talk to Judy Bowers. All of this on Conduit News Hour. Today, I'm Paul Harrell. Pope County and casinos. I think there are some people who are alive today, probably not me, but some people who are alive today that never thought those two phrases would be put together. Pope County having casinos. This issue is just getting more and more predictable. News broke last week that a judge ruled in favor of Citizens for a Better Pope County. This is the group that is not for, there would be some that would tell you that there are some who just want the people to have a say. There may be some in the Citizens for a Better Pope County that wouldn't mind having a casino in their backyard and the things that go along with it. But they just think that the people ought to be able to govern themselves. And let's just get to the news, shall we? This is from Citizens for a Better Pope County. We have this statement released about some court victories that happened yesterday. This is from, or last week. This is from Larry Walker. Larry Walker is a frequent guest on this program. We've reached out to Larry. He'll be with us next week to give us a more detailed update. But he said, "Dear Pope County residents, we had a big victory in the courts last week. Judge Wendell Griffin from Pulaski County issued a temporary restraining order against the Racing Commission to keep them from issuing a casino license because their potential actions would break their own rules and violate Amendment 100. So let's stop right there. So you're telling me that we've got this current situation where a casino wants to come to Pope County. Now, I believe, and I think there's recent polling and recent elections to prove, that the majority of the folks in Pope County are not for this. You have the quorum court that I believe went against the will of the people. You have, I believe, certain instances of the county judge clearly went against the will of the people. City council, anyone who's in government now all of a sudden sees this giant windfall of cash that's going to go to the government, and for some reason, when money's on the line, they're willing to ignore the wishes of the people. Sure, there are people in Pope County who do want this casino. I just don't think it's the majority like the name suggests. Pope County majority. I don't think they're the majority. So you have secret meetings, allegations of secret meetings in violation of the Freedom of Information Act, doing straw polling of quorum court members, all the way to leading up to the vote to where then they recommend Cherokee Business Nation for the casino contract, that the Cherokees are going to come and they're going to own the casino. Okay, well, at that point I said many times, well, this seems like a movie. We're going to get a casino by hook or by crook. All of the stereotypical things that you would assume would happen when a casino has the opportunity to move in, it's suddenly made legal, but the residents don't really want it. All of that is happening like a movie script. And I've said if you've watched the show Yellowstone with Kevin Costner, it's pretty close to something like that, although we don't have any murders yet, and let's hope it stays that way. And now we have the Racing Commission. It is now found, according to Judge Wendell Griffin, that they were in violation of their own rules. Now, what does that sound like? Well, it sounds like what would happen if a governing body violating their own rules so that a casino can more easily come into a community that doesn't want it. And again, that's what I maintain. I don't believe the community wants it. The statement goes on. Judge Griffin declared invalid the second application period, which was opened by the Racing Commission. Said it was in violation of their own rules. Larry Walker goes on. Now, our appeal before the Supreme Court of Arkansas remains. In this effort, we will ask them to overturn the ruling by Judge Pearson, which declared our local ordinance unconstitutional. And then we need to elect a new Pope County Quorum Court that will promise to reinstate the local ordinance for the protection of our county. We are grateful for a judge that has stood up for the rule of law and not succumbed to the influence of big out-of-state money. And then he asks a few questions. How can you help? Well, you can vote in the March primaries, vote for candidates which oppose casinos in Pope County and will fight for our local voice. And you can also, you need to vote against the county bond proposal, which seeks to freeze out the city of Russellville from potential casino revenues. Number two, give to our legal cause, they write, as we continue to fight this battle. This court battle is a marathon, and it is expensive. Your financial gifts greatly help. Please make your checks payable to United for a Better Pope County and send your checks to 1310 West Main Street in Russellville, 72801, Suite 200. Monetary gifts are not tax deductible. Thank you for your continued support. Keep up the fight for the people of Pope County. Sincerely, Larry Walker, United for a Better Pope County. So, the Citizens for a Better Pope County here had some big victories, and this was much needed because it really seemed like the fix was in. It seemed like there was nothing a local body of citizens could do to govern themselves on the issue of whether or not they wanted a casino and all of the things that come with it in their backyard, in this great community of Pope County and in a city like Russellville. So, we'll continue to follow this story, but it is incredible to me how corrupt this whole process already seems. The lack of transparency from county officials that none of whom I'm told actually campaigned for county judge or justice of the peace on a pro-casino platform. They were anti-casino, and now all of a sudden, they get in office and they start to make a deal because they can't turn down the money, I suppose. And they're having secret meetings. They're in violation. I mean, even the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette admits in multiple pieces, and the county officials have admitted to having secret meetings, and they're in violation of the Freedom of Information Act. They're in violation of the public meetings laws. And yet this continues. And I guess, by the time the legality of all this is weighed, maybe the hope is by the time that the legality, the appeals to the Supreme Court, by the time all of this has come about, will there already be a casino? So it doesn't really matter. Well, we've already done it. Yeah, we might have done it the wrong way, but it's here now. We can't go back. Seems like Judge Wendell Griffin, of all people, is making that harder, those plans harder to come to fruition. Anyway, very fascinating stuff on Pope County. Now, in other news, I do want to tell you that in the state of Arkansas now, and this is a big difference, those of you who are smokers out there, you now can no longer buy cigarettes in Arkansas, according to Governor Asa Hutchinson and the federal law that was signed by President Trump, unless you're 21 years of age or older. And the reason I want to cover this is because last year, during this time, the Arkansas General Assembly was debating whether or not to increase the age of smoking in Arkansas, just Arkansas, from 18 to 21. But they were going to phase it in, and that's the bill that Governor Asa Hutchinson, in fact, signed. Phase it in. So that meant that if you were 19 and you had a steady nicotine addiction, you were still going to be able to go and get your nicotine addiction. I think this was an effort to not upset a lot of people. That is no longer the case now. The Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, they have an article, headline state clarifies tobacco purchase age is 21. And in a statement Monday, Asa Hutchinson said this, quote, the federal law recently signed by President Donald Trump, which increases the minimum age of sale of tobacco to 21, coupled with the recent decision to ban certain flavored e-cigarettes, are steps in the right direction toward curbing the vaping epidemic among our nation's youth. Smoking and vaping, especially in our youth, are public health emergencies and must be addressed at the state and federal level. He went on to say that the federal law trumps the state law that was passed last year. The governor said Monday that the federal law supersedes the 2019 state law. So that means if you're 20 years old and you've been smoking since you were 18, and let's be honest, you probably started smoking when you were 16, you're going to go in and not be able to buy your cigarettes. This is really bad government, and really and truly, folks, it doesn't make any sense that you can serve your country and die in the military. You can vote, but you can't buy tobacco. And a lot of this is fueled by the health crisis that tobacco-related illnesses, they're a big thing. And you smoke, it's not good for you, okay? We know this, okay? Just like sugar is not good for you. People have been smoking tobacco for a long time. If it wasn't for tobacco, America wouldn't even be here, by the way, in terms of the economic implications. But I digress. One of the reasons I'm alarmed at this sudden emergency about vaping and kids are smoking in high school, it's been happening for a long time. One of the reasons I'm alarmed by it is because I think it's running parallel toward this country's concept that healthcare is a right. And if healthcare is a right, then you need to curb what is bad for people and control their choices. Meaning, if we've got to raise the age to 21, and pretty soon you'll need parental supervision if you want to have a donut. You know what I'm saying? Because it's bad for your health. And it goes right in line with the radical Michael Bloomberg type of thinking. And because they used kids, and the fact that kids are using tobacco, whether it's being delivered through water vapor or whether it's being delivered through, insert the next technological thing that they're going to freak out about tobacco. It's using kids and getting people to react emotionally and not thinking about where we're headed as a country. If, in fact, healthcare is a right, which it's not, it's a service, it needs to be a service, or medicine is going to be really terrible in a couple of years. Also, I don't believe I have the right to the knowledge in a doctor's head. If healthcare is a right, though, you can make the economic argument all day long, the financial argument all day long, that you need to control what people put in their bodies. Not just cigarettes, not just tobacco, not just drugs, but the food you eat. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Island with Ewan McGregor, where you can't have bacon. It's a terrifying terrifying concept, 1984 stuff, like taken to the max. But that's kind of where we're going. And it's sad to me that we don't have politicians, especially here in Arkansas, that don't see that. This is running parallel to the idea that, hey, we've got to cut down on our healthcare costs by controlling what our people are putting in their bodies. I'm not saying the government should be telling people to smoke. I just think they should be a little bit more consistent. If you can go serve your country and die in the military at 18, and likewise, you can say the same thing for alcohol. And, this is another example of the states losing their sovereignty as well. The government wants the states to change the laws in order to give our own money back to us. That's why everything is so uniform right now, and you used to have a patchwork of different laws in the state. And there are benefits to that, and there are disadvantages to that. What do you think? There's some 19-year-old that's going to walk in this store today after this clarification to convenience stores and be told that they can no longer get their fix. And they're going to be pretty mad about it. So watch the news for that. And last, real quick, Arkansas is still seeing the Clinton Foundation. This headline, Frank Lockwood, Arkansas still sees giving by Clintons, 10 groups aided by charity. That's the headline. But if you scroll down here, well, what was the largest donation? Overall this year, the foundation gave away $1.97 million nationwide to 4 dozen nonprofit groups. The Family Foundation's biggest gift, $800,000, went to the Bill and Hillary and Chelsea Clinton Foundation. Wait a second. The Family Foundation's biggest gift, $800,000, went to the Bill and Hillary and Chelsea Clinton Foundation, which has offices in New York City and Little Rock. So their biggest donation was to themselves. That probably should have made it in the headline. What do you think? Clinton gives to Arkansas groups. They give the biggest amount to themselves. You can't make this stuff up. Folks, we're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back here in just a moment. Are you tired of having to fight the crowds at mega stores just to save money grocery shopping? Well, no more. Bill's Cost Plus is the new way for you to save big. Bill's is still your meat store with the same quality certified Angus beef you've come to expect with Bill's 6 picks for just $24. And Bill's carries a full variety of national brands with everything you need. The only difference is you're saving more than ever. Visit BillsCostPlus.com. Follow them on Facebook and Twitter. Bill's Cost Plus now open in all 3 Jonesboro locations. All right, folks, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. We're going to go now to Family Counsel's David Cox. You can go to the website familycounsel.org to see all of the great issues that they are covering about the traditional American values. And, you know, that a lot of that centers around what's taking place here in Arkansas. David, can you hear me? How are you, sir?
I can hear you. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Did you have a good holiday season and a happy new year?
I did. You know, we did a lot of traveling and we're on the road a good bit trying to see family and get all the visits worked in that we could. But no, it's good. It's good to be back, too, kind of get back in the swing of things with a new year.
Well, so the month of December, I was perusing familycounsel.org, looking at a couple of these articles here. I've got one, you know, I've got 2 from December, I think 3 from December, 1 from January the 3rd. I'd like to just kind of go through some of those and get your thoughts on this. This headline back on December the 12th, Arkansas Lottery's scholarship funding remains dismal, according to a November report. What's that one all about?
Well, so the Arkansas Lottery is notorious for budgeting very little money for scholarships. You know, it's supposed to be the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery, but in reality, in a good year, only about 18 or 19 cents of every dollar that the lottery makes actually goes to education. And, you know, the lottery has never delivered on the $100 million per year for college scholarships that, you know, Arkansans were promised back in 2008. And so what we've seen over the last couple of years is that scholarship funding has declined. And this year, scholarship funding is sitting at about 14.6% of all the revenue that comes in. So you can think of it this way. For every dollar that the lottery makes, only about 14.5 cents actually goes to fund college scholarships for students. And, you know, for comparison, the average state lottery does at least somewhere around 30%. You know, that would be average. So Arkansas budgets very little money relative to what it takes in, very little money for scholarships. And this year, the scholarship funding actually is down about 3% over where it would be, you know, if the lottery were selling as many tickets as it did last year or the year before. So it looks like the lottery is cutting its scholarship budget actually this year. And no one really seems to know why, you know, why we're normally not funding the scholarships very well. We're doing an even worse job this year. And so that's very troubling, I guess you could say, to see that at the Arkansas Lottery.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, it's supposed to be for the kids, or at least anytime you criticize, you know, the scholarship lottery. I mean, it's got the word scholarship in it, David, so it's got to be good, right?
Yeah, and that's the argument that's made. But in reality, you know, most of this money goes to prizes. It goes to pay vendors, pay overhead costs, salaries, marketing. You know, at the end of the day, very little money actually makes it into the hands of college students. And that's been a criticism we've leveled against the lottery since day one. This is a problem we've seen going on about 10 years now, and it's only gotten worse. I hate to say it.
Well, so that was back on, let's see here, December the 12th, I believe. And then at familycounsel.org, December 20th, the question, why is the Arkansas Lottery budgeting less for scholarships this year? I mean, that's a great question. And this is the great work that you guys do. I mean, have they given an answer yet that's satisfactory to you?
No, we've heard some excuses, you might say, about, you know, well, ticket sales are down and, you know, people are more interested now in the new casinos that are opening up at Oak Lawn and Southland and over in Pine Bluff. But, you know, as I said, I did the math on it. If the lottery were selling as many tickets as it did last year, you know, last year was a better year for ticket sales than this year has been. The scholarship budget would still be about 3% lower than last year. We would still be looking at least a 3% decline in scholarship funding. And so there's really not been an explanation as to why that is. And I'm actually anxious to see some of the reports that are going to come out. Hopefully this week, if not next week, we'll know how December looked for the Arkansas Lottery. and we might be able to pick up a trend and see what fiscal year 20 is shaping up to be financially for the lottery. But at this point, it doesn't look like it's going to be a good one for the college students, and that's a real shame.
So then we have December 18th, familycouncil.org, headline, State Lottery rolls out new $20 scratch-off tickets. What's this one about?
So these are high-dollar scratch-off tickets that the Arkansas Lottery sells. And, a scratch-off ticket is different from, say, a Powerball ticket. Powerball, you go pick some numbers and then you go home and you turn on the evening news and you find out if you won or not, or you tune in when they draw the numbers. Scratch off, you buy it there at the store and you can scratch it off right there and find out if you won or lost. And so, people, a lot of experts liken scratch off tickets to paper slot machines. They're instant. They're more prone, people who play them are more prone to develop gambling addiction and gambling problems. And Arkansas relies heavily on scratch-off tickets compared to most states. We rely more heavily on scratch-off tickets than many state lotteries do. Arkansas is selling scratch-off tickets not for $1 a piece or $5 a piece, but for $20 a piece. And so you have Arkansans who are walking into convenience stores or gas stations, and they're dropping $20 bills on scratch-off tickets. And these tickets offer big prizes. We're talking $1 million jackpots, but extremely long odds. I think on the $1 million scratch-off ticket that we profiled, your odds of losing are about 66%. 66% of the time, you'll pay $20 and you'll lose it. But the other 33% of the time, you might win a $20 prize or a $40 prize. And there's always that slim possibility that you'll win some big jackpot prize. And so what we've seen in other states, Paul, is like in Texas and elsewhere where they've rolled out these high-dollar scratch-off tickets, people play out of desperation. They spend their grocery money on the $20 or $50 scratch-off ticket, hoping that they'll hit it big. And so this is a ticket that really hurts the poor. It preys on people who are poor or desperate. We're not talking about people just throwing away a dollar bill on a whim to see if they're going to win the lottery. This is more serious money. If you're middle class or if you're, close to the poverty line and you're buying these lottery tickets, you're going to feel take that hit, feel that hit that you take spending $20 on a lottery ticket. That's really going to hurt you.
Yeah, I read here, the odds of winning $1 million jackpot prize are a staggering 1 in 640,000.
Right.
And, I've talked about this before, David, but this is, I know there are people out there that, they've got a little disposable income. It's like, oh, why not? I'll buy a lottery ticket. Or maybe the Powerball gets big. Why not? But when you think about how this preys on, like what you said, the desperate, I just think, why is the government sanctioning this? I remember a time, I don't remember it, I wasn't alive, but running numbers used to be something that the mob did, and it was illegal to do. And now it's everything's fun because it's a giant moneymaker.
Yeah. And you've got the state running it. And, Paul, there's a body of research out there. If anybody's good at tracking gambling research, it's the gambling industry. And a lot of gambling experts and casinos and folks who run lotteries or casino gambling for a living will tell you that when it comes to gambling, about 80 to 90% of the gambling revenue comes from about 10 to 20% of the customers. And so the folks who are really funding the Arkansas lottery, who are buying the tickets, probably are about 10 to 20% of all the lottery players in Arkansas. And there's some research out there that suggests those 10 to 20% of the customers who are buying these tickets are the most poor and the most desperate people in the state. It's people who are playing in hopes that they can hit a big jackpot and move into, if not, into a bigger house, if not move into a house. People who are playing because they want money for groceries or a new car or what have you, that, they really don't feel like they have any other economic means. And so they're playing for either basic necessities or trying to improve their life. They're not just doing it for fun. And that's a dangerous thing, I would say, when the state starts to prey on people who are in a desperate situation. That's something it's just not good for your state. It's, I would say it's immoral, and it's going to hurt your society in the long run.
Okay, so we've got one more article here, January the 3rd. Okay, I don't know. This might have been the first one of the year. I'm not sure. A headline: Slot Machine Group spends nearly $235,000 on ballot effort. So there's a ballot effort to expand slot machines.
Yes. Yeah, this is something that came up back in August, but it hasn't made many headlines since. You've got a group that's called Arcade Arkansas, and they want to bring casino-style gambling machines to Arkansas under the Arkansas lottery. And they're technically called coin-operated amusement machines, but they really function a lot like slot machines. Paul, you may have seen some of these in gas stations or convenience stores already if you've driven around the state much. I know I have in a few places. You'll walk into a gas station or a convenience store, and over in the corner, there will be a machine that at a glance, it looks a lot like just an arcade game, like Pac-Man or something. But you get over there to it and you realize, well, this isn't an arcade game at all. It's actually a slot machine. It's got the reels on the screen there with the different, tokens or whatever that show winners and losers. And, so these games are already operating illegally in parts of Arkansas. You'll go into as I said, I remember I was in a pizza place back a few years ago. I walked into a pizza place down in South Arkansas, and there was one over in the corner. These games are illegal currently on Arkansas law. And we've got a group now that wants to legalize them and bring them under the purview of the state lottery. And if they're successful, then there will be about 15,000 games authorized statewide under the Arkansas lottery, 15,000 casino-style gambling machines. And that's going to be a nightmare for the Arkansas lottery to try to police. I can just tell you that, because there's no enforcement mechanism in this constitutional amendment they're trying to pass. There's really no oversight or enforcement that's going to make it possible for the state to oversee and police 15,000 games to make sure folks are complying with the law.
So if they are successful and they are able to fold these slot machines into the scholarship lottery, that would mean that a portion. So if you go to play this game, it's going to fund the scholarship lottery at that point.
Well, that's going to be the argument. But when you read the amendment that they're proposing, only about 20% of the money actually goes back to the state to fund scholarships. And in reality, it doesn't even necessarily say it has to be earmarked for scholarships. It just goes to the office of the Arkansas Lottery. So it would still be up to the lottery, I think, to budget that money. So you're talking about, obviously this is the gambling industry writing its own amendment and its own tax rate. You're talking a very low tax rate on the machines. And at the end of the day, we may not see any more money for students. But that's really going to be the argument in favor of it, I think, if it makes it to the ballot. And I think we have to assume it will make it to the ballot this November.
I mean, everything makes it to the ballot, doesn't it, David?
Yeah.
I mean, you have enough money, you pay enough canvassers to go out. I mean, that's why the ophthalmologists are doing what they did and trying to repeal a law that benefited optometrists. It's a pretty lucrative thing. You just get it on the ballot and then you message it, and the people. Are you surprised? I'll tell you this. It's amazing to me how many issues get on the ballot and pass. I mean, it's almost like nobody wants to say no to anything.
Yeah, this is something we've talked about at our office. It used to be that the default answer that people would give when they would go into the voting booth and they would vote on an issue, people would by default say no. They would vote no on an issue, especially if they didn't understand it. It feels like now when you look at the numbers, people are more inclined just to vote yes, and I think there's a certain level of trust. People trust if something's on the ballot, it's probably not bad. You wouldn't think that bad measures that are going to hurt your state could make it to the ballot. You trust the election process. And so that may be part of it, that folks expect their ballot measures that they see on election day to at least be neutral or good measures, not ones that are going to hurt their state. And in this case, this group, Arcade Arkansas, has spent, I think, about $235,000 on their ballot measure. Most of that money is being spent paying canvassers to collect petition signatures to place it on the ballot. And so that's some serious money that they're throwing down on the petition drive itself. And so I think with that in mind, we have to assume if they're paying their canvassers that much, they're going to get their signatures and they'll make it to the ballot for November. And so it's going to be incumbent on Arkansans to really understand this measure and just how bad it is.
So then likewise, and once a special interest gets on the ballot, sometimes, there's opposition to it, organized opposition, fundraising to it, but not often. So if it does get on the ballot, I know, organization like Family Council is at least going to try to get the information out that you guys don't support this idea.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to do our part to educate folks and let them know just how bad this is going to be for the state. You know, Paul, just one of the problems that comes up with the gambling issue, there's a lot of money behind gambling expansion. There's not a lot of money to be made by blocking gambling expansion. You know, I mean, if gambling expands in Arkansas, some businesses are going to get very wealthy off it, but nobody has a vested interest in keeping gambling out to speak of. And so there's always going to be more money on the pro-gambling side, I'm afraid, than on the anti-gambling side.
Yeah. And, you know, you start to think, okay, well, what really suffers here? And I think it's I think the family can end up suffering very much. And that's sad that there's not an interest in trying to preserve that. But I know that's what you guys are trying to do. And David, I really appreciate you coming on. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm just going to say that I think as voters, we have a responsibility to be educated about what's on our ballot. And so I hope, you know, in spite of all the money that's going to be spent on advertising between now and November, I hope that voters will take an interest in these measures and understand, you know, how these issues affect families like theirs and their neighbors. And, you know, I think we have a responsibility to be well-informed citizens when we head to the polls and go vote on these issues. Because, you know, as I said, there's a lot of money that's going to be spent trying to convince people to vote. At the end of the day, I think we need to vote based on the merits of the issue. And that falls on us to be knowledgeable about that.
David Cox from Family Council, the website, folks, familycouncil.org. David, we'll do it again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, back in just a moment. Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate one time or monthly. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org. So the government is continuing to see more and more of your tax dollars from year to year. Talk Business and Politics reporting that Arkansas tax revenue is up 3.4% in the first 6 months of the fiscal year. The fiscal year began July 1st. 3.4%. If you go through some of these numbers, you find out that sales tax revenue is up. Sales tax collections were 4.3% above last year, with gains in both consumer-related categories and business-related categories. We didn't have to raise taxes on the people of Arkansas. Now, I know many of you might be saying, what do you mean, Paul, raise taxes? We heard all of this great fanfare about income tax cuts and phasing that in. And that's true. Cutting the income tax from 6.9 to 5.9% over a period of time is a great idea, a great plan. I wish it would happen sooner than phase it in. But then you raise 5 more taxes over here. And that's what's happened here in the state of Arkansas over the last year. And now we are seeing this fiscal year, the people of Arkansas, according to the Department of Finance and Administration's own numbers, a $70 million net tax increase on the people when you combine all the tax increases with all of the tax cuts. Now, this is very disturbing and it's upsetting to many people. But the fact that we have increased revenues, 3.4%, the sales tax revenue is up, likely because of the internet sales tax, which I'm not sure I buy some of these sales tax numbers, because the Department of Finance Administration can't give us a number of how much more money the government is making since they passed the internet sales tax on out-of-state sellers. They can't provide us those figures. And so that means they're not tracking them, or they don't want to release them, one or the other. They say it's an unknowable number. And so I think there may be even more money coming in. That remains to be seen. But the point is, if they would stop spending, see, all this increase in revenue from us, the extra amount of money they're getting from this year from what they got last year, is most of it going to be spent, folks. It's most of it going to go out the door and be spent. And when it's spent, it's grows government. It increases the expectation of what needs to be spent the next year. And it's this never-ending cycle. And so the question is, how much is enough? And did they have to nickel and dime us $70 million when they're making so much more? According to figures posted Friday by the Arkansas Department of Finance and Administration, the year-to-date revenue was also up 2.5% above the forecast. Surplus revenue year-to-date is $93.1 million. Their surplus revenue is $93 million in just the first 6 months. They increased our taxes $70 million for the whole 12 months. Now, you say, well, Paul, maybe that's not responsible budgeting. Well, if you're claiming that you have these needs, but you don't want to raise taxes, there's a much more conservative way to do this. And there were legislators who wanted to count on these revenue increases to pay for these other needs. But instead, the spending continues and the tax increases continue. And it is extremely frustrating. And your government and your politicians, not all of them, but some of them, aren't done yet, because Governor Asa Hutchinson's chief priority this election year, 2020, not the reelection of Donald Trump or helping him, not that he would or could be effective in that area, but is to get a tax passed. That's right. A half-cent sales tax is set to expire if you vote against the ballot initiative coming up here in November. Seems like a long way away, but get ready, because you're going to hear about it over and over and over again. You're going to continue to hear about how you need to vote yes for a new tax, a tax that we're now paying that is set to expire in 2022. You need to vote for this new tax to change the law to make sure it doesn't go away. You're going to hear about, we're going to have chug holes in the road, and that's going to cause accidents, and it's going to make you less safe. They're going to do everything they can to get your money. They're not done. They're seeing record revenues, and they still need more of your money. And I hear from people every day, Paul, how much is enough? Paul, does our government really understand economic freedom? Paul, does our government understand that Arkansas is already one of the highest tax states in the country? Does our government understand this? That they do in words. They do in campaigns. We're seeing much of this rhetoric in the Republican primaries that are coming up in March. Right now, you have candidates who are claiming, I'm the most conservative. No, I'm the most conservative. And they're going to hold fast to those Republican Party principles of limited government, lower spending, less taxation to produce economic growth. But what have they actually done? Words are cheap. That's what I've learned in my life. Words are cheap. It's actions that really matter. Actions speak much louder than words. And it's not over, because the Arkansas Department of Transportation, that is paid for by you. You fund the Arkansas Department of Transportation. Did you know that? All Arkansans fund the Arkansas Department of Transportation. And there are plenty of people, I'm sure, that are going to vote for the tax, but there's a lot that aren't. And your tax dollars are now going to be used for the Arkansas Department of Transportation to hold public forums advocating for more taxes. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's right? Again, Talk Business and Politics headline, Arkansas Department of Transportation to host 12 meetings on proposal to extend half-cent sales tax for highway projects. They're going to be January through April, and I'm sure they'll even have more meetings after April. They'll be, in Monticello, the 21st of January. They'll be in West Memphis, the 23rd. The 28th, they'll be in Harrison. The 30th, they'll be in Texarkana, February 11th. Mena, February 13th. Fort Smith, February 20th. Hot Springs, March 9th, they'll be in Maumelle. March 10th, a meeting in Springdale. March 12th, a meeting in Batesville. March 31st in Jonesboro. March 2nd in El Dorado. Or April 2nd in El Dorado. So what do you think about that? The question is that right? Is that ethical? Where a government agency is now going to spend your tax dollars employing people to advocate why they need more of your tax dollars. The right thing to do would just be let the people decide. Leave it leave it to the governor, I guess. Although, I mean, it's kind of messed up when he's being paid by the taxpayer to advocate more taxpayer dollars. I mean, that's definitely within his purview, but an entire bureaucracy going to the people with their propaganda, that's what it is. They're going to tell you why they need this money and why you need to undo what the people voted on back in 2012 when we all voted for the tax to sunset. And now they're saying, are you sure that you want that tax to sunset? You know, we really need this. We really need to do more. We need more of your money. An Arkansas bureaucracy funded by your tax dollars being used to propagandize the population so that they get more of your money. And I say more because it's a sales tax. Sales tax revenues go up the more commerce is done. And the tax statutorily is set to expire. So this will be a new tax on a people. Otherwise, you wouldn't have it. If we vote this down, the tax goes away in 2022, meaning the people of Arkansas have an opportunity to vote for tax relief. Again, we're one of the highest sales taxes in the nation. We have one of the lowest incomes in the nation. According to the USA Today research, we were the 17th worst place to live in the nation when it comes to tax code and policy because it's so high, which really puts Arkansas, which is a state that has a Republican governor. We've got Republican constitutional officers. We've got a Republican supermajority in the House. We have a Republican supermajority in the Senate. We have a Republican governor. The policies right now that have been enacted, and there's been some good things, but we've got to outdo even the red states because they're so far ahead of us right now. Right now, Arkansas is essentially got the tax policies in the rankings of an average blue state, of an average Democrat state with their oppressive tax policy and everything else. Just like a run-of-the-mill blue state is what we look like. And we've had Republicans being elected en masse since 2010 in Arkansas because of Barack Obama and his Marxist socialism, which woke a lot of people up. We've got a lot of work to do. You've got to tell your friends that this is just unacceptable. And we're beyond personalities at this point. We're beyond, well, you know, I really like the governor. There's a lot of people that do like the governor, but the policies are what the disagreements are. It's the policies. It's the actions, not the words. It's the actions that matter. And we are taxed too much in this state. We have more taxes coming. We have people advocating for more taxes, and yet the revenue is increased to the state, and they continue to spend and spend and spend. Please let us know what you think about this. Please sound off in the comments. And don't forget, folks, subscribe to the YouTube channel, click the little bell to receive notifications, and check out our new website, conduitnews.com. Don't go anywhere.
Are you tired of having to fight the crowds at mega stores just to save money grocery shopping? Well, no more. Bill's Cost Plus is the new way for you to save big. Bill's is still your meat store with the same quality certified Angus beef you've come to expect with Bill's 6 picks for just $24. And Bill's carries a full variety of national brands with everything you need. The only difference is you're saving more than ever. Visit BillsCostPlus.com. Follow them on Facebook and Twitter. Bill's Cost Plus now open in all 3 Jonesboro locations.
Welcome back to the program, folks. Thanks so much for being with us. So we are, as part of our continuing coverage of the Republican primaries and also the election in general, we are looking over who's running for office. Specifically, in State Representative District 22, there is actually a Libertarian running for this seat. Her name is Judy Bowers, and Judy is on the line with us now. Judy, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for inviting me to come. I really appreciate it a lot.
Yes, it's my pleasure to have you here. So let's just talk a little bit about why you wanted to run for this seat. This is the former seat, I believe, of Republican State Representative Mickey Gates. And just got to go ahead, tell us why you wanted to throw your hat in the ring.
Well, it's a multifaceted answer. Years ago, I already kind of thought in my head gee, someday there's going to be something, there's going to be a reason why I'm going to want to get involved in politics. And I've been on the sidelines and doing different things, heading different things to encourage people to expand their thoughts and so on. And then when this seat opened up, I was encouraged by a number of people to maybe think about really getting into it and getting a good Libertarian presidency. They really felt that I would be a strong person for this. So I decided, okay, and with my husband's strong support, I thought, okay, let's go for it. This would be something that would be really good. And then additionally, we did a little research of how many different kinds of professions and so on people had in the State House. And biggest preponderance are business people and a few lawyers, almost no medical people. Just a handful. And we looked at that and went, with what's going on in our society and the medical needs generally, a voice that had some true hands-on experience be real helpful. So put all those pieces together, and that's why I went for it.
So what area of the medical fields are you in?
I was a pediatric nurse in Minneapolis, and I'm a senior, having retired. So I have a lot of reason to get to know a lot more detail about the seniors than what I used to know. But I have a real soft spot for the kids and obviously for my friends and neighbors.
So tell us, we're talking with Judy Bowers, a Libertarian candidate for State Representative District 22. Okay, why the Libertarian Party? What about that appeals to you the most?
The whole philosophy in general. The core philosophy is personal liberty. With that goes personal responsibility. So my tagline is fiscally responsible, socially tolerant. And really, if you think about it, you and I and my friend next door, we all want to be tolerant of each other, and we all want to pay our own bills. It's just what we do.
So so what is that? How do you think that will shape your, if you go to Little Rock, what would you do? How would that inform your decisions? And do you think, I guess, there are any glaring problems in state government today that you think need to be addressed and fixed?
Well, it's some of the global problems that we have, that we need to control our spending, and we need to control it in a very informed, careful way. I do believe in government being the way for us to support people that absolutely need it, but we do not need to support everybody. We do need to accept our personal responsibility to care for ourselves. And that there's an important balance in there, and we need to look at that. We need to keep government limited. When government grows so much, it becomes oppressive. And I know there's a lot of people talking about limiting government size and scope. That needs to be really focused on. Very much so.
Okay. Yeah. A lot. I would tell you this, just for me covering state politics for a while now, there's always a lot of talk about it, especially during campaign season. But then when you actually, the rubber meets the road, there doesn't seem to be as much commitment to addressing things like spending and limiting government in general. I mean, government growing, when we continue to spend more and more of the taxpayers' money every single year, that's growing the size of government.
Right. Absolutely. And that's where the big politics, the big boys, as I sometimes like to call them, they become so ingrained, the whole concept of bureaucracy, and you have a couple people kind of running everything. In the Libertarian, I'm not beholden to those big boys. Not that I can't play with them. Believe me, I am able to talk with anybody and everybody in all phases of life. And I learned that in my nursing career. But I don't necessarily have to behold to them.
So where do you come down? We're talking with Judy Bowers. Judy is a candidate for the State Representative District 22, a Libertarian. Where do you come down on the Second Amendment?
I am very pro Second Amendment. Depending what you're wanting to ask, I do have a concealed carry permit. I don't necessarily feel that mandatory to have that.
Me neither.
To be able to carry. But where I came from in Minnesota, it's the only way I could legally do it. So I do have one.
Okay. So you're about the second. So you support the Second Amendment, you individual liberty, in general.
Yes.
So I got to ask though, in the libertarian movement, just from what I know, and again, I'm not an expert, but I sometimes, I kind of lean libertarian, I think, in terms of live and let live and that philosophy. But in the libertarian proper, there does seem to be kind of a divide over the issue of life and being, pro-life versus the liberty to terminate a pregnancy. So where do you fall down on that?
It's obviously a very complex, very hair trigger concept and so on. I guess what I need to say is my personal experience. I happened to have been pregnant when Roe v. Wade came down, and my son's dad really wanted to look at abortion. He really didn't want to have kids, and it was just something I couldn't do. And throughout my nursing career and so on, I've learned plenty. I feel that if someone came to me and asked me to counsel them, I would need to tell them that it's a very important life decision. No matter how you go on it, it will be a decision that lives with you the rest of your life. And it lived with me because I chose to carry my child, and I have a wonderful son because of it. But, on the other hand, I still strongly support a person's right to choose. Again, the personal liberty. I'm not going to tell anybody they have to do one thing or another. I can only encourage what my personal philosophy is, but the party really will not support it. The other thing that's really a big part of that is, along with the personal responsibility, is the financial responsibility. So if a person is pregnant and chooses not to have the child, the government should not be paying for the results of that decision. And it's not just the female. There's a male involved. It's a dual thing. So it's very complex. I won't tell someone what to do. I would only tell them how I feel and how it affects my own life.
So you're pro-choice because you don't see that as the government's role, correct? That's what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Again, we got to get government smaller. And
right.
The more we can pull government out of people's lives, the better off we all are. But
you would support the role of government in, say, having laws against murder, correct?
Well, again, that's personal responsibility. If you kill somebody, you have to be held accountable for it. Mm-hmm. So obviously.
So you see the argument that's on the right is, they think that that's murder. They think that ending the life of unborn child is murder.
I understand. And it just comes right down to the definition of when life begins. And that continues to be an argument that will plague our country for a long time.
There's no question about that. From my standpoint, and I know, we're just open exchange of ideas here. It seems like it's kind of arbitrary, in terms of standing up for an unborn child. I mean, the real question to me, Judy, is, we're asking, when is this life? There's no question it's a life. I mean, if you found a fertilized egg on Mars, the headline would be life found on another planet. The question is, when is this life a citizen under our Constitution? Do you agree with that? I mean, that seems to be what the issue is when are we arbitrarily going to say this person has rights?
I would add one more word in there: a viable life.
Okay.
When is it a viable life? Having worked in pediatrics and neonatal and all that, I have seen when they brought back a fetus that was less than 23 weeks, and it really wasn't viable. It did not survive. So,
but we are deciding in this case, I'm sorry to harp on this, we're deciding who are people in this case and who are not. Let me ask you this: how is that any different from slavery and Dred Scott and deciding who are people and who are not based on the color of their skin versus, some arbitrary distinction of, well, it's not viable. I mean, it would be fine left alone in the womb, but because it can't exist outside the womb, it's not a person. I'm just curious how you answer those types of questions.
Well, that compromise occurred with Roe v. Wade. And at this point, that is the law of the land, and we need to live with the law of the land. And if I choose not to do it, then that is my personal choice.
Judy, what's the one thing you want to do when you if you go to Little Rock? What's the first thing that you want to do?
What's the first thing I want to do at the State House?
Yes, at the State House.
I want to get my hands on all of those medical laws that are being proposed and all of the financial implications of a lot of those. I've been doing a lot of reading and finding out probably the largest issue is this whole transparency issue, how people have been able to hide the true costs of care. And if we as consumers understood what the true costs of care, not just our copays, but the actual true costs of care were, especially when sometimes you can go one place and it'll cost 10 times what it costs somewhere else. And we as a society can't afford to be paying those kinds of differences anymore. So the sooner we can get transparency laws and rules in place, true, honest transparency information to all the consumers, we will see healthcare costs go down.
I certainly agree with that goal because there's a lot of hospital math going around, like $100 aspirins and that sort of thing. There needs to be definitely some movement on that. I know there's people that have tried to do that in the past. I know there's some federal efforts as well. But I mean, there really needs, for consumer protection reasons, there's got to be a lot of transparency that we're not getting, because it's allowing them to essentially just get rich off of all of us, Judy Bowers, I appreciate you letting me pepper you with questions. I appreciate your time coming on the program. Again, you're running as Libertarian State Representative District 22.